Hey there guys, this is Victor with VictorVectorJKU. We're back in the garage and today we're going to be working on modifying the bumper I've been running for the last couple of years to get it to have a little bit more clearance for me for the intermediary step between now and when I get my frame shop bumper fully designed up and ready to go. Let's get into it. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the structure of the bumper. So the outer skin is made up of 5/36 inch sheet steel, 2 3/4 inch tabs up in the front. Then you also have this 2.5 inch bull bar with 2 tabs on the top for mounting lights to, as well as fog light pockets in the wings. So if you guys remember, I did a modification to this bumper once before. I cut the wings back and also pulled them forward a little bit because I was actually tearing the lugs off of my tires. I'll go ahead and throw a flag up here that'll link you to that video if you guys are interested in seeing the process of how I went about doing that. So let's go ahead and flip this bumper over. I'll show you the inside real quick. So what you can see here is that you have your 3/16 inch plate, comes back, folds down, and then comes back down to the base of the bumper. As well as you have 2 gussets in the center of the bumper as well, which tie the front to the bottom of the mounting surface of the winch plate. And these guys are also 3/16 inch thick. So it's really a pretty stout bumper. There's good reinforcement to the mounting, and honestly it has held up really well for all the winch pulls that I've done. I've done a number of them with this Harbor Freight winch. And so that's the reason why I'm looking to modify this bumper as an interim to my frame shop bumper. Now I could just leave this as is, not go through and modify it, and it would be just fine. But the thing is, I no longer have the crush bar that was basically right here before. Essentially what that means is this mounting surface here, I can cut all the way up to that. I can take that all the way across the bumper and I can tuck that whole part up. I'll cut these gussets back as necessary, and then I will basically rejoin this piece and this piece to its native location. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw it up a little bit, see where everything lands, and get to work. Alright guys, so I got the first couple of steps down. What I've done is I've gone through and I've marked along the areas that I want to cut and remove material or create bending areas for the bumper. So what I did was I have a cut line here along with 3 cut lines here, here, and here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove this entire panel, because what I need to do is I need to have access inside to this gusset, and you might be able to see, but I have a line going up right here. So I need to remove this pie portion of the gusset. And similarly on the front side, what I did was I marked 4 inches from the bottom edge up. That puts me just below where the weld is for the mounting face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a relief cut in there, so that way I can fold the material straight back easier and I'll have a nice straight bent edge. Then after that, what I'll do is I will figure out how this piece needs to fit back in and cut that to match, weld it up, weld the gussets, and we'll be good from there. But before I get into that, you can see that this whole surface here is all wavy and stuff, and I want to try to straighten this up as much as possible. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use an adjustable crescent wrench with an extension of a piece of tube, and I'm just going to basically put this onto the material, and I'm going to go ahead and just manually bend it to get it back to as straight as possible. So you can see with using the adjustable crescent wrench with an extension how you can get the levers necessary to go ahead and bend this material and get it pretty straight again. Now the next step is I still have a little bit of material that's sort of bowed in around these 2 holes here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my hammer. I'm going to try to pound these out as best as I can. So I've already started on this side, and what I did was I just basically propped it up, and my table has a little bit of a dip, but the outer edge is strong. So I'm just kind of holding it in place, supporting it with my foot, and I'm just going basically just whacking at it, and it's getting it pretty well done. So I'm going to keep going at this. Alright, so that worked out pretty good. The bumper is actually pretty straight again on this front leading face. So I'm pretty happy with that. So next up, what we're going to be doing is go ahead and do the cuts on this rear brace, cut out the gussets, and also put our relief cut in the front fascia. All right, so with the back bracing and the pies out of the gussets removed now, I am ready to go ahead and flip it over, and I'm going to go ahead and cut the relief on the face so I can bend it backwards. Then I'm going to go through and I'm going to clean up, because you can see there's actually a pretty decent amount of corrosion and rust on the inside here. So I'm just going to clean up some of this, and plus I have to take down all these areas and grind them a bit smoother so that they're ready for weld. And also just prepping the material to be able to weld everything once I'm done. So I'm going to flip the bumper over and get working on that relief cut. Alright, so with all of our cuts done, so we've removed the gusset, we've taken out the back piece, and we've also cut the outside edges of the body, and we put in the stress relief cut. We're ready to go ahead and bend this face back up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my 2 crescent wrenches, and I'm going to go ahead and try to slowly bend different portions at a time. Alright, so there we go. That is basically what I was looking for. So I gained right about 2 3/4 of an inch of additional clearance now from this edge to this edge. So that's where it was before. So that gives me just a little bit more of an approach angle there, or at least if I come to a ledge, I can be 2 3/4 inches taller and be able to make it over the obstacle. So that's pretty awesome. I'm stoked about that. And so the next thing that I'll be doing is I just got to figure out what I want to do about these corners here that are sticking up, how I want to fold them down or fill in. And then after that, I'll be coming back and welding up everything and figuring out what my back plate here will be. Alrighty guys, so I just finished up doing the final cuts here on this lower corner portion here. So what I did was I determined where I needed to cut, where I had to relieve some material out, where I put my relief cut in for the bend, bent this piece in, and I actually had to cut this piece out because no matter how I tried to cut it to make it bend, I was going to overlap a whole bunch. It was going to make it kind of a mess. So I decided just to pull it, just to cut it completely out, which made it super easy. And then I just cut out the amount of material that needed to be done, and that guy's just going to sit right in there just like that. And then I'll just sort of notch off the corner here for where it's going to have a little bit extra. So I think that's going to work out pretty solid. I have everything pretty much all ground and prepped, ready to be welded up. So what I'm going to first start off with is I'm going to reattach the gussets on the inside to this bottom portion. Weld both sides of that on both of those. Then I'm going to work on welding in the outer portions. So everywhere I put the stress relieved cuts, I'm going to go back and fill weld those. I'm going to reattach in the pieces I cut out here. And then I'm going to evaluate what I want to paint with some weld through primer first, and any areas that are going to be kind of captured back inside here that I won't be able to get to with paint too easily later. So I'm going to hit that, and then I will cap off this portion, and then basically it'll just be doing any touch-up welds, grinding, and then getting it ready for paint. So I'm going to go ahead and get set up and start welding this guy in. Alrighty guys, so I just finished up welding and grinding all of the reliefs and welding in the cap panel that I had to cut out on both sides. And I gotta say I am pretty happy with how everything turned out. And this is giving me so much more clearance now. Not having the crash bar, not having this guy come down at the 45-degree angle and extending further down. So this doesn't really help my approach angle, since really my approach angle is probably going to hit this edge of this bumper anyways. That I can come up to a wall or a ledge, I'll be able to approach it, which really a lot of the damage to this bumper was really focused on the lower 3 inches anyways. So I think this is going to be a really big deal. This is going to improve a lot of my approach angles and my ability to climb over steep ledges, or at least come up to them. And this will work good for the interim until I get around to finishing up the design for my frame shop bumper that's really going to suck it all back in. And I am getting excited for that. But so let's go ahead and walk you around, show you the sides a little bit, and see how it's all turned out. All right, so giving you a nice little low view here so you can see that I am still about an inch or so below the frame rail, but that's not a big deal because obviously my lowest point is going to be my anti-rock, and so that does hang a little bit below the bumper, but it's not too bad, and you can see it's just a little bit below. But I am quite happy with how this all turned out. You can see how the front edge is all nice and blended in, along with the additions of the wings. And these pockets here will actually still work out to be high lift jack mount points. So I can bring in my high lift jack and I can put it here and it'll hold on and have a good place to bite, and I don't have to worry about it slipping out on me. So the thing that's really left now is to finish up the brace that's on the back of the winch plate to the bottom edge of the bumper. So I'm going to work on that next, but first I got to figure out what I'm going to paint on the inside of the bumper so that I don't have to worry about any corrosion in there. Alright guys, so one more thing that I ended up doing on the wings here is I went through and I welded the inside just to get a little bit more penetration through and make sure that these additional pieces or these new cuts and bends are nice and strong back to the main body of the bumper. Then what I went and did was I chamfered the edge here, as well as my filler plate. This guy was the original bracket, and what I did was I ended up actually cutting it down in size, so I just cut the legs off a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and re-weld this guy back in right here like so. So what I did to prep it up is I used some zinc weld-through primer. I'm just using a U-Pole product. And I did that both on the inside here, and I primarily wanted to get the inside in this area really well because I knew I would not be able to get good paint coverage once I weld this plate in. So I wanted to make sure I had everything at least primered beforehand so it's good, as good to go as possible. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and weld this guy into place. So I'm going to first lay down a couple of tacks, get him held in place, make sure I like where it is, and then I'm going to go ahead and burn it in. Alrighty guys, so that wraps up all the fabrication for the modifications to this aftermarket bumper that I have. And I think the bumper turned out pretty solid. The only thing left to do is get it ready for paint. Alright guys, so I just finished up painting and priming the underside or the inside of the bumper, and I've also laid down a couple of coats of primer on all the bare steel surfaces, as well as I've gone through and I've scuffed up all of the existing coating and I wiped it all down with acetone. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my coating to the bumper, and what I'm going to do to match to the rear bumper is I'm going to be using Raptor Liner. So what I have right here is part of the Raptor Liner kit, and each one of these bottles is more than what I need. It's going to cover a greater surface area than what's necessary for this bumper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it in quarters approximately. So basically this bottle is 24 fluid ounces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce that down into a quarter. I'm looking to get about 6 fluid ounces is what I'm going to be shooting for. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour that into this container. And I have 1, 2, and 3 cup progressions. So I'm just going to approximate because 8 cups is going to be 8 ounces. So it needs to be just a little bit lower. Now granted, I've already used this bottle, so I should only have 1 portion left. So hopefully it lands right around that 8. I'm going to fill it up to whatever I have. And then I'm going to put in the matching amount of hardener. And this guy here, to be the reduced amount, it should be 8 ounces per every 24 fluid ounces of the coating. So basically if I divide that by 4, then that leaves me with 2 fluid ounces, and I have my progression for 2 fluid ounces marked on this guy. So I'm all set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mix this together, and I'm going to start applying it to the bumper. Alright, so we got the bumper mounted back on the Jeep. I finished up with putting 3 coats of Raptor liner on the outside surfaces of the bumper. The inside, I just went with spray paint and called it good there. I don't really necessarily care so much about the appearance of the inside. I just want to make sure it was well protected. And I have 2 3/4 inch more clearance up on the front with the modification that I did trimming up the bottom edge of the bumper. And I've gone out a couple of times now since having finished up this bumper mod, and so far it has proven to be very good. I've been able to avoid a lot of obstacles that I beforehand would have ran into. Everything has been working out really killer with this bumper so far. I'm really pleased with how it all turned out, and it's going to be a good intermediate step between now and when I get to my frame chop bumper that I'm going to be working on next. So if you guys are interested in seeing a little bit more of a heads up on what I've got going on before I release these things on YouTube, you should head over to my Instagram page and check it out there, because I typically am a little bit more forward with providing details and information on what projects I'm working on currently on Vector, along with the different process steps. So if you feel like it, head over to my Instagram account, check it out. Otherwise, that's gonna wrap up the video for today, guys. I hope that you found this video informative and also entertaining. And if you did, please give this video a thumbs up, give it a like, and drop any questions, comments, or feedback in the video comments down below. And if you guys are enjoying the content that I'm uploading, please go and hit the subscribe button, support the channel, and help me grow my channel by sharing it with any of your friends or other groups that you might be involved with. Otherwise, guys, we are VictorVectorJKU. We're taking on this build and the trails, both direction and magnitude. Alright guys, have a good one. Catch you next time.